Good morning, everyone. Today, I am happy to talk about some of the initiatives for the Ministry of National Security outlined in our 2023 Throne Speech. In last year's Throne Speech, our ministry focused on developing early plans for an island-wide CCTV system, enacting legislation that governs staffing levels for our airport firefighters, and drafting legislation pertaining to cybersecurity. As highlighted in this year's speech, under the theme Serving the People, human and technology resources continue to be an essential element of keeping Bermuda safe. Our main priority is getting the new island-wide CCTV network implemented before the end of the fourth quarter of 2023. Starting in the first quarter of 2024, the Ministry of National Security and the Bermuda Police Service will implement Phase 2 of the initiative by conducting a number of pilot studies relating to traffic infractions. This phase will include the implementation of speed cameras. These studies will determine how the new CCTV network can aid in more rigid enforcement of traffic laws, promoting safer driving and safer road use. I will provide further updates on the full implementation of the CCTV network and on the Phase 2 developments after the planned pilot studies. The CCTV network is another tool that will be used to keep our citizens safe. Introducing a cybersecurity bill to the legislature continues to be a priority for this government. I am pleased to say that we are closer to finalizing the drafting process and tabling a cybersecurity bill in the House of Assembly. The bill will be revised to incorporate the necessary statutory enhancements recommended in response to September's cyber attack on the Bermuda government. The cyber attack underscored the critical need for robust and adaptive cybersecurity measures in our country, and that is why this government is determined to ensure the safety and security of Bermuda's digital landscape. Once the cybersecurity bill is drafted and approved by the legislature, the legislation will not only address the evolving cyber landscape, but also incorporate the valuable lessons learned from September's attack. A cyber bill is more than just laws and regulations. It is a safeguard for our national security, the protection of sensitive data, and the continued functioning of our critical national infrastructure. It ensures that we have in place secure technology systems and frameworks in which to conduct our business. As we chart a course for the upcoming year, we must address the human resource challenges identified within our uniformed services. We are resolute in our pledge to create opportunities for more Bermudians to contribute to organizations that make up our uniformed services, recognizing the importance of diversifying and strengthening our ranks. Therefore, the Ministry of National Security proudly announces the forthcoming implementation of the Uniformed Services Cadet Training Program. This initiative will serve as a beacon of hope and opportunity for our young Bermudians, setting the stage for promising careers in Bermuda's uniformed services. The Uniformed Services Cadet Training Program will offer foundational training, equipping successful candidates with the skills, discipline, and knowledge necessary to excel in the diverse and challenging roles of our uniformed services. Through this program, we will empower young men and women with the tools they need to succeed while instilling a deep sense of civic duty and responsibility. Strengthening the ranks of our uniformed services is something that we are focused on year-round. The public will recall the graduation in September of 23 Bermudian recruit firefighters who completed a grueling training program in the UK and are now operating at the airport. Last week, 7 recruits began their foundational training course within the Department of Corrections, supporting our ranks of corrections officers. We will be releasing details of their training course soon, and there's another recruitment course planned in the near future. Another legislative priority for our ministry is to explore legislation providing additional safeguards for our young people, particularly our young women. Sometimes, when discussing national security, we often focus on policies dealing with our young men. However, we also need to focus on protecting our young ladies. I was pleased to hear compelling presentations from the Family Center's Youth Leadership Academy on various issues affecting young people and our families. One issue that was addressed during the presentations was our culture of catcalling or street harassment, in which men regularly target our young ladies on the street by shouting out harassing comments, which are often sexually suggestive, threatening, and demeaning. This presentation showed that this issue is more prominent than some may realize. It was clear to me, especially as a father, that street harassment can be particularly traumatizing for its victims. Sometimes the victims of this harassment are school-age girls. This behavior is abhorrent and simply unacceptable in any decent society, and we are committed to taking measures to eradicate such inappropriate behavior. Legislation already exists to counter this type of harassment. However, I believe we need to explore ways to enhance the protection of our young women to ensure that they feel comfortable and safe while walking our streets. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome. It should come as no surprise that the opening remarks of the throne speech, the very first statements were focused on education reform. And it also highlighted the critical role that education plays in ensuring our country makes genuine progress. Her Excellency highlighted the 2023 school year marked a milestone with Francis Patton and Purvis Primary Schools transforming into inaugural parish primary schools. This change reflects our commitment to equitable, high-quality education for all. Though reform takes time, its significance in nurturing community growth is undebatable. Education underpins society's success. In September 2022, Cedar Bridge Academy and the Barclay Institute welcomed the first cohort of the Signature Learning Programs. After 1 year, based on recent surveys, our findings are promising. Approximately 75% of Signature Learning Program students report enjoying their studies, which is crucial since enjoyment fosters motivation and consequently academic success. Approximately 70% of students believe Signature Learning Programs courses help them to build on their talents and capabilities. This is significant as the courses have been structured so students can have strength-based, personalized pathways where we move away from the one-size-fits-all approach. Approximately 70% of students believe Signature Learning Program teachers and coursework challenge them to do their best. This matters as an appropriate level of challenge is one of the strongest predictors of academic performance. The ongoing monitoring and evaluation is combined with reports from both principals that students are engaged, resulting in fewer examination resits and resubmissions of late assignments than non-signature learning program courses. The throne speech also outlined the government's ongoing commitment to education reform, specifying the establishment of transformation teams for the next 2 parish primary schools at Elliott Primary and Harrington Sound Primary, and introducing a new signature programs in hospitality, tourism, and education services at Sands Secondary Middle School. The Education Reform Unit has recently advertised to recruit the next set of school transformation teams and is seeking dedicated educators and community partners to join this transformational initiative. The school transformation teams will be responsible for supporting the unique Bermudian-led process for redesigning signature schools and parish primary schools that will form Bermuda's transformed public education system. The responsibilities of each transformation team include collaboratively designing the parish primary schools for Elliott and Harrington Sound Primary, utilizing the 10 features of parish primary schools. Continuation of Year 1 and Year 7 curricula at Francis Patton and Purvis Parish Primary Schools, along with the development of Year 2 and Year 8 curricula. Ongoing development of the Hospitality and Tourism, along with Educational Services Signature Program at Sands Secondary Middle School, and the expansion of the Signature Learning Programs at Cedar Bridge Academy and the Barclay Institute to include new strands of arts and culture and sport and leisure management, respectively. This legislative year, we will also present a bill to establish an education authority following the Bermuda First recommendation. This will introduce a new governance structure to effectively manage and advance the public education system. The key to the success of public education is the introduction of a new governance and management structure and culture. The ministry engaged the Education Authority Working Group to develop a multi-year implementation plan. The establishment of an authority is an ambitious, complex, and wide-ranging undertaking that will involve numerous legal entities, public and private acts, aided schools, various unions and bargaining units, employment rights and property rights, in addition to affecting over 1,000 Department of Education employees and school staff, and over 4,000 students and their parents. The ministry has determined that specialized and dedicated legal advice is required to provide the proactive strategic direction and to respond to both anticipated and unanticipated legal issues uncovered during the development and implementation of the authority. The government's commitment to advancing education reform is unwavering. We are here to support and uphold the interests of the students of Bermuda and for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, ministers. We'll now have both ministers at the podium. We'll follow then with questions by TNN, Trevor Lindsay, then Sarah Lagan from the World Gazette, and conclude with questions from Gary Foster Skelton from Bermuda Broadcasting. Ministers, coming a little closer to that mic. Thank you.
Minister of Education, I want to ask you, haven't heard anything, no updates from, or is there going to be any legislation for the East End and West End this school process?
We are in the process, as we announced back in the end of July, of the rescoring process, which will take into account the history and legacy. And that process is on the way with the History and Legacy Working Group, currently conducting meetings with the representatives that have been supplied, the representatives of the various schools that have been supplied to them.
Can you confirm or deny information that we've received from the ministry that a decision has been made to keep West End Primary School open and clear Somerset Primary School?
There have been no decisions that alter what was originally put into the public domain in April of this year.
Thank you. Can I ask the Minister of National Security? Minister, what's the latest with the installation of these new security cameras? When will they be operational? Talking about throughout the island.
Okay, the installation of security cameras started in September, and with a hope to be substantially complete by the end of the year. So we are on course for that. So at the latest by the first month of the new year, all the cameras will have been installed.
You mentioned the cyber security attack. Mm-hmm. Will each individual ministry have their own server that will, I guess, minimize if we have such an attack again on the government system?
At this point, Trevor, we are still in the drafting of the cybersecurity legislation. Once that drafting of the legislation is complete, we have a clearer idea of what the legislation will entail.
Thank you much.
Sarah?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I was wondering, Education Minister, if you could give me an update. There had been a plan to move all the St George's primary kids down to Whitney. Wasn't a very popular plan, and I believe the government decided to do a U-turn on that. We haven't really heard much of an update on what's happening on that plan. Can you shed some light?
And thank you for that question, Sarah. As answered to the previous reporter before you, the plan that was issued in April was issued for feedback, and we have received extensive feedback on that plan. Since then, we have announced the rescoring process to take into history and legacy. And so the changes or modifications to that plan will come once that process is completed.
So you can't give an update of where the St. George's Primary students will be?
The update is, I think I've given the update. We put out the plan of what we intended to do, or what we wanted to do, and we were taking feedback from that. Since the rescoring process is underway, once the rescoring process is underway, that information as well as the feedback will be fed back into the plan, and an alternate plan, if such, will then be put together and we will go back out for. We'll go back out for consultation on that.
Do you have a timeline? Sorry, do you have a timeline on when that will be completed?
We have asked the History and Legacy Committee to have their work completed by the end of November, and so that is what we're working towards. And once that work is completed, as I said, the 3-tier to 2-tier plan will be re-examined, and that plan will be made public, and we will have the similar interactions that we had in April on that particular plan. What I can say, Sarah, is that we've had, since then, we've had meetings with the East End population. We've also had meetings with the West End population, as everyone would know. And you are correct. One of the things that we have definitively stated, and that was sent out in a letter that went to all East End parents in May, is that the relocation of students to Whitney is not something that will be entertained at this time, and we will look at alternative options.
Okay, thanks. There had been, sorry, I'll stick with you for now.
Okay.
Excuse me. The Bermuda Union of Teachers has put out some quite public statements recently. One thing that they had been focused on is this teacher and student exodus from the public school system. Is this something that you're seeing, and are there any figures that you have or can supply in terms of how many people are leaving the public school system?
Interestingly, Sarah, the latest data that I received, which was earlier this week, shows that since September, the difference in number of students in the public school system from September to the end of October is plus 15.
Plus 15 students.
Students.
How about the teachers?
The data that we have, and I'm waiting for updated data on that, shows that we actually have, and I'm going by memory, approximately 30 more teachers in the system between 2021 and 2022. So I'm waiting for the 2023 numbers now.
So you would say the statements that have been put out by the BUT are erroneous?
I'm not saying that at all.
Why? Because the two statements don't match up.
Sarah, as I said, I'm waiting for the data to come, the finalized data. The data on school enrollment and staff enrollment is always issued at the end of November via a report by the Department of Education. And I'm waiting for the updated data from this year so we can make those types of comparisons. I will say that, as we all know, in Bermuda, unfortunately, anecdotal data becomes the popular opinion, and we have always known, and we've not hidden from the fact that there is an exodus from our system between primary school and middle school. That is one of the reasons why we are revamping the system. But however, there is an entry of students at the primary level and at the senior level that we are seeing. And so those things balance out. So you can imagine if you are a parent and you see 20 cohorts leaving at the middle school, you'd say there are a lot of people leaving. But you don't have the ability to see that there may be 15 people coming back at the high school level, and the incoming P1 class may be higher than what it was the year before. So it's just a matter of us actually getting that data, and that's something that I've asked the Department of Education to be much more transparent with, is that type of data, so we can address those types of questions up front.
Yeah, and you'll be sharing that data with
and
the public.
that data, I've made it clear that data will start to be public knowledge.
Yeah, can you give an idea how our public students are doing academically, how their grades are currently?
Sarah, what I can say is that last year Both senior schools had a high 90% graduation rate. In order to graduate from our public school systems, you must satisfy a criteria that gives you a high school diploma, and so our students are doing well. I'm not going to stand here and say that everyone is doing great and it's perfect. If it was, then we wouldn't be changing what we're doing and looking to do education reform. But I am happy and I'm confident that the teachers that are in our system do the absolute best that they need to do in order to get our students prepared.
Just wrapping up with you 1 second.
Sure.
Any update on Purvis and Francis Patton when their school buildings are going to be ready?
The construction is ongoing with that, and I'm scheduled to meet with. We're scheduled to have a meeting next Wednesday to get a full update on where those are, and we'll be sure to. Of course, we'll let the parents know of what's going on there, and after that, I'll be sure to be having a public release on what is going on and what we expect for those.
Last question. The curriculums for the signatures and all the school levels, are they ready?
Since we've just had, as I said, we've just finished the first year of signature schools, and they're going into the second year. So, of course, the curriculum for S1 and S2 is complete. The curriculum for P1 and for P7 is undergoing right now as we've opened up parish primary schools. And as I said in the statement, we're recruiting school transformation teams for the new schools, but the school transformation teams for the schools that already exist are still working on what the next steps will look like. And so it's I think one of the things that we must be very clear on, and as we go about this reform process and have a change management on how education actually works, is that it changes every year, and it's not once we do it, it stops and we don't continue growing. So the curriculum will continue to evolve as the world turns, as things change, and as we move forward with education. So in my opinion, it will never be just finished. It'll be a framework that will continuously evolve.
Sorry, there was one question I forgot. The Education Authority, you had mentioned in the last throne speech that would be dealt with in the last legislative session. Yes. Why the delay?
As you've recognized from my statement, I spoke about the complexities of actually establishing that. This is a massive undertaking that has never been done before in Bermuda. And so as you've heard myself and you've heard the Premier say, that this is too important for us to just rush through for political expediency. If we will measure once, we'll measure twice, we'll measure 3 and 4 and 5 times if we have to make sure we get this right.
Thank you. I have some questions for Mr. Weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks for your update. I guess I'll start just with the CCTV network, as you had done. Is it correct to say that these cameras cannot clock speed?
Phase 1, we are just implementing, and that's going to be license plate recognition. As I've said before, in phase 2 would be updated and upgraded to address speed cameras.
So they will be able to see, the cameras will be able to clock whether a car or vehicle is speeding?
Yes, ma'am, in phase 2.
That's the goal?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of the cybersecurity legislation, it was mentioned recently that the government's looking at what needs to be strengthened in that legislation. Is there any insight you can give at this stage as to what does need strengthening in the legislation?
I wouldn't want to expound on that at this time. The drafting of the legislation is still ongoing, and hopefully in the next session of Parliament it will be tabled. Once it is tabled and debated in the legislature, we will make our findings known.
Would it be fair to say that we are as susceptible to a cyber attack now as we were before the September cyber attack in the absence of this legislation?
Well, looking at the cybersecurity, we have always been trying to strengthen our systems. Since September, we have even delved further. So I wouldn't say that we are just as susceptible as before. This is an ongoing process, and we continually strengthening our systems.
Well, I guess one area that might be is the training that's being undertaken. Has that training started yet?
Yes, it has.
Can you give any indication as to the nature of that training and who is taking it?
Well, different people from different departments are undergoing different training of the various department systems to upgrade their skills and knowledge of cybersecurity and what to look out for, and to making sure that our systems remain crime-free.
Okay. Is Bermuda part of the international agreement that was recently struck as to not paying ransoms to cyber criminals? It was announced by the National Cybersecurity Centre recently that the UK has signed an agreement with the international community not to pay ransoms. Do you know, is Bermuda automatically involved in that or signed up to that?
I really don't know at this time.
Okay. Can you say anything about whether Bermuda did pay a ransom?
Well, the investigation is still ongoing, and once the investigation is complete, we will be able to say where we are with that.
Can you speak to any of the services that are still being affected?
Well, like the Premier had said yesterday, that most of these services are all back up and running.
All of the services are 100% back up as they were before?
Based on what the Premier said, his statement was most of these services are up and running. And
most of them. Can you say which ones are not?
At this time, no.
Okay. Just a couple more. There was rumours that the Bermuda government refused to cooperate with the UK authorities that were brought over by Government House to investigate the cyber attack. Can you confirm or deny that, or provide any information on it?
I would deny that. Any assistance that was offered by the UK, they came here and they were able to assist us in getting to the bottom of this.
Okay, just finally, a video has been circulating about some graffiti that's been sprayed on a wall, I'm not exactly sure where, with offensive remarks about the Premier. Are you aware of it? And if so, have you spoken to the police about this?
Yes, I am aware, and I have spoken to the police, and the Department of Public Works is currently addressing that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ministers. I will start with you, Minister Weeks. Since you are already before the mic, wanted to ask about the uniform services training program. What research has gone into this? What kind of number do you expect to take up these opportunities? Do you know that there are people that there are students who want to go in this direction?
Most definitely. Every time there is a recruitment class that's put out to the public, we get upwards of 100 people always applying for the posts that are available.
So is this essentially to enable, because obviously there are a lot of students that don't make it through. Mm-hmm. So essentially you're trying to make it so that 100, there's a greater percentage of that 100 will make it through to the next stage of being being in the police force or in the fire service or in the regiment. Mm. Is that the aim here?
Most definitely. Since we've had a low number of successful recruits, we have decided to come together and come up with a cadet program that could help our young Bermudians realize a career in the uniformed services.
Okay. And you did refer to the fire recruits who are now at the airport. When is the next fire recruitment phase?
Well, if it's not this year, it'll be early next year. Definitely by the end of, at the beginning of the new fiscal year, 2024.
Okay. And then you said you're on track to finish phase 1 of the CCTV implementation by the end of this year or the first month or so of next year. The timeline for phase 2, has that been established yet?
Well, phase 2 will definitely be undertaken during the next fiscal year, 2024.
But you've not set an end date for it as such?
Well, it will be undertaken and starting our new fiscal year.
Okay. The bill, the new cyber bill, you weren't able to give us any hint on what might have changed in that bill in response to the cyber attack, but the Premier did indicate it would be one of the first bills to come before the House. He gave a date of November 24th or in December. Are we going to see it before the end of this annual year?
We are definitely working on that, and we are actually right now as we speak in, I think, the fourth draft of the legislation. So hopefully by the end of the year we will see it tabled in the House.
Any more questions, Gary?
I do have more questions. I'm just moving through my notes. You noted at the end of your statement the additional protocols, etc., to protect women. You said that when it comes to catcalling, things like that, there is legislation that already exists to address this, but what needs to be done to that legislation? You indicated more things need to be done.
Well, the legislation does exist, but I don't think many people know about it. So one of the main things we've done, we have to make the public more aware. So we are going to look at the legislation and the policies around that to make sure that the public knows that that is a tool that they could use when they feel threatened or harassed.
So part of this is a public awareness campaign.
Most definitely.
Going to the hack, the cyber attack, from people in cybersecurity, I've been led to understand that ransomware, although this has not been confirmed, but is widely thought that the attack was ransomware. Ransomware is the last stage of the attack. The exfiltration of data, all of that, is done far earlier within an attack. So the Premier has indicated that it looked like hackers could take data, but they have no forensic evidence of data exfiltration. What does that mean? What does that mean that there's no forensic evidence? Is that server logs that tell us that some data was taken? Is that someone looking on the dark web to find out if any Bermuda data is on sale? What does that mean?
At this point, Gary, the investigation is ongoing, and once it is complete, we will inform the public as to where we are and what we have found.
Great, Gary, can we go on with another line of questioning so we can keep moving?
Very well. Just to follow on, I think this has been mentioned before, but for my memory, the forensic investigation team, can you at least tell us, are they from the UK or the US?
The initial forensic team was from the US, and the ministry responsible for the IDT will be able to better answer any further assistance that we've had.
Thank you, Minister. Now, if I may speak to the Minister of Education. Minister. So, when speaking about the rescoring process that is being looked at right now, has the ministry essentially had to go right back to the beginning with that? Or is it wipe the slate clean and start again, or are you building on something that was there before?
No, as announced when I did speak to this previously, the rescoring process involves adding a history and legacy component to the scores that already exist, and so that process is being looked at and how it can be integrated and moved forward.
I see. So it's adding to what's there, yes, as opposed to wiping everything else out. And have you had a lot of feedback from people wanting to join the schools transitions teams?
As far as I know, this is the second round that we've done that, and the response has been generally positive.
Any numbers of people who?
Actually, Gary, I don't know the numbers now, but the team has told me that it's been generally positive.
Okay. And when do you have a time when the Education Authority bill will come before the House? Are we expecting it this year or in after Christmas?
It will not be before December.
It will not be.
I can definitely tell you that it will not be before December.
Okay.
Before December. It will be in this legislative year, but it will not be before December.
Gotcha. How independent will the Education Authority be? Bermuda Tourism Authority, it may not be apples for apples, but the Bermuda Tourism Authority has 2 sitting MPs on the board and one is the chair. How independent of government is the Education Authority going to be?
First of all, Gary, I reject the insinuation that because there's a sitting MP on a board makes it not independent. I don't see how you draw the parallels with that. In terms of the idea is to have education authority in place that runs the Bermuda public school system, and the strategies and and all of the things that will go into education come out of that authority, which will be run by education professionals. However, because this authority its funding will come from the government, as you well know, and as the public well knows, there are financial instructions that mean that there has to be a reporting process of that authority to the government on how those funds are spent.
And speaking of schools transformations, and I will be bouncing off my colleague Sarah's questions here on Purvis, and the last time we spoke, it was looking hopefully before Christmas that the renovations will be complete. Do you have any kind of update?
As I said, we can look at what has been done. If you drive by Francis Patton, you'll see that they're actually starting to put the roof on the building. And so we know we can physically see where that is. But as I said to your colleague, Sarah, we'll be meeting with the project managers and Public Works on next week to get a complete update of what's been going on and where we are with that, because that is something we do need to let the parents and the principals of the school and obviously the staff and everyone to know what's going on there. And the intention is to be able to give them a full update, then give the public an update.
Okay, and a concerned parent has contacted us. Is the head of Purvis on leave at this time?
Gary, I cannot comment on personnel matters because, one, you know for sure that is not the remit of the ministers.
Very well. One note of concern or confusion from the public, maybe, when is the innovation unit going to be a more public part of this process? We've had emails from concerned citizens that feel they're not being properly told about everything, and millions in public money is going to the IU. So if they are the innovators of a lot of this process, why do we primarily hear from yourself, with all due respect, but when are we going to get more from them?
You know, it's interesting that you make that comment, Gary. The simple fact is that what we are doing for our public education system is being done by Bermudians for Bermudians. The role of the innovation unit as change management partners is to help guide how that work is done. It's not their remit to be out front doing the work. It's Bermudians that are doing the work. They are just providing the support. Sitting here today, we have the head of the education reform unit that is a valued, well-versed Bermudian educator that is leading that up. If you look at the 17 work groups that are that consist of the education reform unit, are looking at the 17 things that we need to develop, they're all staffed by Bermudian. The innovation unit is here to provide us with guidance and provide us with opportunities to improve what it is that we generally do. They're not here to be out front and saying this is what you need to do. They're here to provide help and guidance on what we are doing.
Well, thank you, Minister. But then it would be fantastic. I know this is a throne speech press conference, but since we're all in the room, is there any chance of Mr. Silva coming up and just telling us about that connection with the innovation unit and how important that's been?
No, Gary, that's something
that
we could arrange later, but it's not something that's going to happen today.
If you have any more questions, Gary, please, we need to wrap up.
Right. So, well, I have no more questions, Ministers. Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, ministers, members of the media, thank you for coming, and that concludes our press conference.